Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another American Scouser's morning coffee with American Scouser, or tea, I guess. But coffee, it is as always for me. When we have the other chair filled, we do get some other drinks involved. Anything we've had anything from gin to tea and everything in between. Good day, right? After yesterday, feels a lot better. It was very nervy. Sadly, I think we talked about it on the Monday podcast, and I think both those guys called the 2-1. So credit to them on that. But I know, like I say, the weirdest part was, yeah, they also called how nervy it was going to be, and it definitely was. It wasn't a 2-1 where we had the 2 goal lead and then we kind of relax, get a goal in, start worrying or something like that. It was a nervy game overall. You thought when that first goal came, especially after the pressure we were putting, it felt like when we put that first goal through that it was going to keep going. We were like, okay, open up the floodgates, but it didn't pan out to be that way. At the end, we concede another silly and easy goal, and guess which side it comes from. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk a little bit about the Champions League scores overall. A couple of surprising scores in there, and the dominance of Bundesliga. Jesus, the German teams pretty much won everything that was in their path, it feels like. So let's take a look at the game from yesterday first. So obviously it's a win either freaking way, and it's a win we needed. So you know what? You take it or run with it. I think I talked about it yesterday a little bit in terms of going into the break with that win. You could see the relief on Klopp for one, which is semi-scary, I should add, but you could see the relief he had along with other players in terms of getting this done, getting the 3 points, and kind of like heading into a break. Looked like they were a little bit, you know, pressured. And Van Dijk and Matip's interview afterwards, Van Dijk talks a little bit about that. It's funny because we talked about it yesterday morning with Van der Hart's stupid comments, and he mentions, I mean, he didn't refer to him by name, but it's probably a lot of the ex-players basically talking shits despite being in similar situations. But once you go to media, these ex-players, it's almost like going to the dark side. They forget everything about when they were a player, and they just they go with the media thing. They get whatever gets clicks, they get whatever turns the video on and all that kind of stuff. Daz is with us this morning. Good morning, Daz. Morning, mate. I think we all have smiles on our faces. Yes, I think we have the same relief that the players and club showed yesterday, right? I mean, it feels better. I think the performance, look, we won that game. We could have easily lost that game. I know we should have easily probably been up like 3-1 or 4-1 in the first half as well. But, they missed that. I can't remember when it was, like 70th, somewhere around there, that header in the back post wide open. And I know, and this is what I get about the Trent criticism, which I want to get to next. But, I heard people talking about Trent there. There's nothing wrong with Trent there. He has two guys to cover, and he was kind of in between them. He didn't know where to be, but that's not Trent's fault that there's two guys in the back post open. So if you're going to criticize Trent's defending, which I will, that's not it. So let's put that aside. And it's not when he's not back there or something like that, because we made him push up. I mean, there was one point where Van Dijk, kicked a long ball from the back, and it wasn't, it was Trent making that run up the middle. You thought when the ball is coming across, you were like, oh, Mo probably, as the camera spans, you're like, oh, probably Mo will be there running to that. And it was like Trent running to that. So if he's not back there, that's sometimes part of the plan. That's not the issue when I come to it defending. That says Elliot didn't track Kundus. And yes, I mean, that's part of it. I think the woes we have on the right hand side comes partially from Elliott and his performance and his defensive game. And I think when we're going forward as well, I feel like sometimes he slows things down. I get this syndrome where he does what Keita used to do at times. And I know, he's in a similar role, but like trying to force something happen. Sometimes you just got to play with whatever the flow is, move the ball, do whatever you got to do. If you got to get past somebody, yeah, that's fine. But it's almost like he tries to do too much to create, and it ends up, slowing the attack and letting the defense settle and stuff like that. But obviously his defensive work is lacking, which exposes that right hand side. So let's go to that right hand side. Another easy goal comes from that side. This is what kills me about Trent's defending. Trent is a good defender when he's 1-on-1. When the guy is in front of him, Trent is a good defender. So let's get this, Trent's can't defend players thing out. He can defend. His positional awareness and his tracking. And lately, what really gets to me is his lack of effort once the ball slightly leaves his area. He did the same thing in the United game. Go back and watch that goal where we criticized Van Dijk a lot, rightfully so, because he was doing kind of like a speed skating move instead of going at the ball. And, maybe you might look like an idiot for like 5 seconds, but you delay Sancho's shots and maybe somebody else can get in there, which is why Milner was going off on him, and rightfully so as well. So, but with Trent, go back to that United goal. It's the same thing. That ball comes through there. It gets past Trent, gets crossed towards the middle, and Trent starts jogging. Like, no way I'm getting there. When Sancho cuts, Trent is like, oh, shit, maybe I could have gotten there. And he starts sprinting. But it's too freaking late now because he cuts, Milner flies, Van Dijk is doing the speed skating, and Sancho shoots. Go back to yesterday's goal. He gets past, basically he lets the run by anyway. So let's go with that. That's fine. You made that mistake happen. So he lets the run go. That ball comes to the middle. Trent starts jogging and watching to see what's going to happen. It's almost like, let's see what Van Dijk and Matip do with this one. And the moment the guy cuts in, he realizes, oh shit, he's cutting this way. If I was actually going all the way initially, cutting, going back there with speed, I could have stopped that cut. Or when he cuts, I'm right there to block the shot. Again, he's jogging. He sees the cut. He starts sprinting. It's too freaking late. The guy shoots, and it's a goal. So I think that's the part that gets to me the most. It's not he's, that's part of the game plan that he's going to be up there and he's not going to be, like always tracking back and, like Hando filled in for him or whatever the case might be. Now we're doing this weird thing with Mo on the wide and still doesn't make sense. I don't care if he scored yesterday. To me, it still doesn't make sense to hide Mo all the way by the touchline and have Mo, the best finisher on this team, be the creator. He was doing both before. He was scoring and he was assisting before. It's not like, before we got nothing but goals from Mo. Now we're creating chances. No, he was doing both before. So hiding him on the side takes away from his opportunities in the box. And he's still creating, but we were already getting that. So that was probably the negatives of the game to me were those. Trent's defending and more than defending, kind of like his tracking and efforts. That's not even defending. I don't know what that is. And you would think after watching a couple of these games and seeing that, and I'm sure coaches are pointing that out to him, it's not changing. It's very frustrating. He's such a young kid and he's got such a big future, but that lack of effort at times just kills me. And I don't know what else to call it than lack of efforts, because you can get caught ball watching. So ball watching is different. I've gotten caught ball watching back in my day when I was playing center back. That's totally different. The guy waits a run, you missed him. That's ball watching. You were like watching the midfielder. The guy made a run. You didn't see it. That's fine. That shit happens. But after the ball tracking, once you realize you got caught ball tracking, you haul ass to basically cover your error. And I just don't see that. He's almost like, oh, dang, it went by. Let's see what happens. Let's see if the other two save my ass. Because I know if he's so used to, especially Hando being there to cover that or tracking back to basically fill in that spot. I don't know if that's what it is. And Hando is not there now. And I cannot recall any incidents. Like you can recall, I can go back to any game and you see Hando there bailing Trent's defending out, or he's there when the ball gets cut in. Unfortunately, you're not getting that with Elliott. And that's why I think that side is getting more exposed. If anybody wants, Hando to be back, it's probably Trent more than anybody else, because he was doing that tracking back to cover that space and cut those balls in. And maybe that's what Trent is used to. So he's jogging back. Hopefully Hando is going to show up out of nowhere to cover that area. But no, and Elliott is not that kind of a player. It's something he has to improve in this game. Alan is with us. Says, sorry, I'm late. Yes, we did a roll call and you missed it, Alan. But good morning. Thanks for joining us. I think, obviously it's a win, so I don't want to focus only on the negative, but you can't just take a win and be like, oh, everything is so much better now. Because one other thing that I thought was glaring was our press is nowhere where it should be. And I think it's a lot of stuff that has to be done on the training pitch with now different combinations being out there. When you had yesterday Jota and Diaz, there were so many times where one didn't know the other one was pressing, or one didn't know the other one was pressing the middle. So covering the wide pass, they would all cover, like Jota would push up and then Diaz would come in, but not at an angle that covers the left hand side. So they would come out of it, because you could tell when we did our press well, they had no chance of getting that ball out of there. But at times, our press is not where it should be. It's not coordinated enough, I guess I should be. It wasn't a lack of effort yesterday, that's for sure, when the press didn't work. It was more about not being coordinated enough. And if you don't do the press coordinated, it's worse than not pressing at all, because now you're making huge gaps behind you that nobody else can fill, because that was your area anyway, but you pressed up. So I think that's an issue. Hopefully they will fix. I know, by throwing in new combinations out there, you're making it a bit more difficult, but at the same time, it's something we got to fix, because any other team yesterday, once they come out of those presses and start attacking, could have been a lot more lethal. And I thought, to be fair, Ajax played a little scared and conservative yesterday. And I think if they knew any better, they would come at this team instead. And I know that kind of exposes it in the back, but it would have been like a 3-3 game or something like that. I feel like if they really came at us, they did not. I think, knowing the score they got in the first game, they were like, hey, you know what? A draw. I would think, in Champions League, if you get, it's not like the Premier League where if you can get a point away, and that's a good deal. You're like, okay, good. You win at home, away, that's even 12 points, and you can lose one of those games away or whatever. And 11 points is usually going to get you to the next round. So they were okay with getting a draw, and they played like it, which kind of helped our cause. That was one thing that I felt like, man, we got to improve this. But compared to the Napoli game, and that's like comparing it to crap, it was definitely a lot better. But even without that, really, we should have probably scored at least 3 in the first half. And from those set pieces, you knew it was coming. Van Dijk had a lot. It felt like every set piece was an opportunity for us, and we were getting to that ball. They really don't have any size in the middle, apart from like Bassi. So, and when you throw so many bodies in there, he can't cover everybody. So we had our chances. You knew that was going to come, but then obviously it got delayed in Liverpool fashion to increase the stress levels. And then Matip, who, I mean, along with Thiago, is probably man of the match. I think a lot of the improvements over the Napoli game came on the back of having those guys back. When you have Matip in the back, who's a lot better on the ball, who can kind of push up with the ball and kind of like disrupt the other team, obviously it's a huge plus. When you have a guy like Thiago on the team who can pass like in a whim, and sometimes doesn't even have to look where he's passing, because he already knows who's where, or he's already taken a peek at that, and can control the ball and kind of win the ball, obviously it's going to improve your midfield. So a lot of the improvements I thought over the Napoli game came on the backs of those two guys, who both had like an excellent game. And that's, I guess, maybe the scary part, right? Like, you put 2 new guys in, they have like the best game, and the team suddenly looks a lot better. Is it only because of those guys improving the overall level? Partially, probably. But like I say, that press definitely has to get better if we're going to win games against better teams. Look, Ajax is not a bad team or anything, but they are, very young in the back. And you could tell, like, that Bassi dude is a beast, but he is really not comfortable on the ball. So it's kind of like was odd for them to try to continuously build the play from the back. And when they beat the press, they really could not make that pass to the open person. Tadic was brutal. Just was like waiting next to the offside flag the entire game, which thank God. But so it was interesting. But at the end of the day, kind of like finished off yesterday like that too. Let's get 3 points. I don't care how ugly it is, because it's key to kind of like make it a building step, which is what Van Dijk was saying after the game as well, that it's just kind of like, it's a good thing to build on as opposed to like another poor score to dwell on for like, heck, like 2.5 weeks almost. So good deal overall. A lot happier than yesterday. I would think everybody who's a Liverpool fan today. Um, I really would like to hear from you guys though, in terms of, do you guys really feel, oh, do you watch that game and say, okay, we turn around the corner? Or do you watch that game and say, kind of like what I felt, which is we got the 3 points. It's a building step. Let's keep moving. And hopefully these 2 weeks will kind of help bring some of that team back. Because I heard like a whole spectrum of things. People thinking like, all right, we're winning everything now, to no, it's the same team. Look at the right hand side and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like somewhere in between, I think, in terms of, I definitely saw the improvements, but I think people who say, oh, yeah, they're back, is they are saying what they want to say. I think, like they're saying what they want to see, or they're seeing what they want to see. Um, Will says still more work to do, but a good step forward. Yeah, I agree. I think there is definitely good things that you see, and you're like, okay, but I mean, here's my fear, I guess. Same team as yesterday, right? Same attitude, let's say. You take Matapot, you put Thiago out, you put the other 11, Napoli 11. Would that game be a whole lot different? I am not sure. So I don't know if it is more about how well the team suddenly changed, the attitude change, or just the fact that, like I was talking about earlier, you put a huge piece in the middle, you put a very important piece in the back, so that changes the entire back line. The midfield changes entirely. I thought Jota's energy was great. There was a huge discussion on our Discord channel about Jota in terms of what he brings. I think his energy alone was needed in that game, if nothing else, to give everybody else a rest too. That says we build on it, and Allen as well, work in progress. Definitely a good thing to see, though. I mean, hey, I'd rather work on this than freaking like a draw or a loss or something like that. And we talked about how brutal it would be if you lost all 3 points in this game. So getting all three always like kind of like evens things out. We'll see what happens in the Napoli Rangers game today. I do expect Napoli to win that one. And I mean, obviously, who cares? I mean, I don't care about like winning the group or anything like that either. Like, just advance to the next round and go to the matchups. I feel like once we get to the matchups and focus on one opponent and what they do and what we do, I think this team still has so much quality. And then we're talking January. You don't know what's going to change. Ox might be back. No, I'm just kidding. Ox probably will still be injured, but at least it will be something to look forward to, and you can see that team winning a lot of matchups with other teams that they're going to go against. But you look at the way we're playing right now. If you think, against the top opponents, we would be able to pull this off, I do not think so. But you can only beat the guy in front of you, and they did that. So definitely a lot happier than normal. Nunez, let me ask you, who's following right now, what you guys thought about Nunez. Because a lot of mixed opinions with that too. Because I think as fans, sometimes we try to see things that we've been saying, or we try to look at the positive, especially when we spend so much money. Nobody wants to say, oh, this is not going to work. Or you have like the complete opposites of people are like, no, this is going to end up being a waste of money and stuff like that. So again, somewhere in the middle, I think it's way too early, and really think we have to adjust how we play if you want to get the most out of him. And I don't know, that was part of the plan of like pulling Mo to hold the linesman's hand all the way on the wing over there. I don't know, that's like part of the plan on how to use that, which never made sense to me, because all preseason we were talking about, you look at any heat map of Nunez from last year on any freaking game, he's always middle to the left. And my thought was, this will enable, with Diaz on that side, who actually likes to cut to the middle, it will help Diaz. And with Mo, it will help Mo, because now you got two guys, you had the defense shifting to that left-hand side to protect against Diaz and Nunez, which will open up a lot of room for Mo. But Mo is over there, holding the linesman's flag with him on the wing. So I don't know how that helps him. Like I say, I know he got his goal yesterday, but I still do not like how far away we're keeping him from the goal. And I don't know what we're gaining from it, because like you can say, okay, you took more away, but Tim, you got this. list me those, because I do not see them, because I do not see Elliot taking advantage of that space as well as he should, not to the value that you would get from Mo taking advantage of that space. And if it's only because we don't have another right winger, that goes back to how we did the transfers in the first place. I know we saw Diaz there for a little bit of a Napoli game, but we saw a lot of freaking horrific things in that Napoli game. So I know how to look at that, but not maybe having somebody there that can play more wide so we can use Mo in the middle. I I don't know what the reasoning behind this. All I know is I don't like it, and I don't know what we're getting from it. But maybe it's something in progress, and it will pay off. And come, March, I'll be like, man, that was freaking genius, and I was a moron for not seeing it. Well, I mean, I could say I'm a moron anyway in February. That wouldn't matter. But would it be for this reason? We'll see. We'll see. Scores from yesterday. I was talking about it earlier. Obviously, the Bayern Barcelona game was like the talk of the day. Lewandowski going back and all that drama. Bayern wins again, Lewandowski or not. There's still, it's one of those teams that, they're always solid. I don't think they're as good as they were maybe like 2 years ago or so. But good win for them. Barcelona still trying to put the pieces together, but that's like an interesting group over there. Sporting beat Tottenham. I watched a majority of that game, of course, except the freaking goals, because I turned it off like 10 minutes to go. But it's weird because Sporting is one of those teams. They have a lot of good players. And there were a lot of moments where, like pass one guy, like ridiculous dribbling or like passing movements, and they go, and then they just could not do that final pass. It's one of those where like dribble, and they're like, man, I got to take a shot, because if this goes in, it's going to be the goal of the season. I've done that before. Anybody who's played the game, especially if you're a defender, like I was, has done that at one point, where you kind of go, and you're like, man, I'm taking my shot, because God knows when this will ever happen again, when I come up here this smooth. And it felt like that's what they kept doing. It's like, pass the ball, like do the final pass. And they could have probably scored more in that game. Mind you, Tottenham missed a lot too. I thought, Sporting did a good work with their line, because Tottenham, like Richarlison was constantly off. Every time he scored, it looked like he was off, and he was with VAR and stuff. So, but Sporting gets the win at the end. Ellis has the Conte drags Tottenham Stars in a surprise morning training session hours after implosion at Sporting Lisbon in response to the way they lost. I mean, like I didn't like look at the game and was like, man, Tottenham looking shambles. Maybe defensively, maybe those dribbles up the midfields looked way too smooth for Conte, what Sporting was doing, because they did make it look easy. And a lot of their players look really good, especially in midfield. I mean, in tight spaces, they were kind of like dancing around Spurs players. So I can see him getting angry about that, because, yeah, I mean, if you put yourself in those shoes, if it was against like the Liverpool midfield, I don't know how much I will like watching that as well, where they kind of like really like was dancing around them, like getting in between three guys and stuff like that. It was like the Globetrotters. Inter wins the game away, and they were like, with Victoria Pilsen was like down to like 10 players at one point as well. Leverkusen beats Atletico, which, I'm assuming as Liverpool fans, there's not a lot of, friends of Atletico in the group over here. But yeah, it was a good day for Bundesliga teams, because they pulled that win as well. And that's like a pretty impressive one, actually, because that kind of like really helps them in that group, which the group, the Club Brugge is running away with as of now. They get like a huge win against Porto. And that's one thing against Porto, man. Like once if they go down, they go down big, and they give it all up, and they kind of like totally lose. That team, I mean, we've done it to them over and over again in the Champions League, where if they start chasing a game, they're like, defense, who needs defense? We're trying to score goals here. And then they just like let one in after another. So Club Brugge like hammered them 4-0 away. So that's a huge win for them. And Marseille, who's also in shambles, Eintracht Frankfurt, who was, honestly, the funny thing is, Eintracht Frankfurt earlier last year in the Europa, I mean, Fenerbahce played them away in Germany. And, whenever the Turkish team plays away in Germany, it's kind of like a home game, pretty much even. But, I mean, it was like a really tight game, and I was like, "Oh man, Frankfurt. Either Frankfurt doesn't look good, or Fenerbahce is really good." Well, we found out afterwards, Fenerbahce wasn't really that good. So it turned out to be Frankfurt maybe isn't that good, but I think within that month they turned everything around, and they had a huge run, obviously, and yeah, it's shocking to see. We kind of like look down on Bundesliga a little bit, right? Overall, we feel like it's Bayern's league and everybody's over there playing with them. But yeah, it was shocking to see them like do all teams do so well in the Champions League yesterday, and pretty much all of them are like in good situation. I know Leverkusen kind of like righted the ship a little bit more than anything else, and that's going to be interesting how they match up with Atletico, because it feels like now Club Brugge still has a home game against Porto. I mean, nothing is a guarantee in the Champions League, but if they get 3 points from that, that automatically puts them at 9 now, with the 6 they already have. So it really feels like it's going to be more in between. And I don't think anybody expected this. Everybody probably thought, Atletico winning the group with Leverkusen and maybe Club Brugge, like Porto, and it could be anybody fighting for the second. It's looking more and more like now it will be Leverkusen and Atletico Madrid fighting for that second spot in that group. And Club Brugge, like I say, if they beat Porto at home, you can probably say they're probably going to win that group, because they can kind of play for ties and some good players on that team, some good players. Yeah, I saw Henry. Walnut says 2-0 by. Yeah, obviously Henry. What is, by the way, speaking of broadcasting, what the hell was up with the guys calling the game? If you watch it on Paramount, what was up with the guys calling Liverpool's game? Like, were they just bored? Were they mourning for like the funeral? Like, what was the deal when Mo scored? I honestly, from their reaction, for a split second, I was like, was he off or something? Because they did not show any emotion, like zero, like nothing. Like it wasn't even a goal. It was like a throw in. The same impact you would get from a throw in is what they showed for that goal. They were definitely a lot more excited when Ajax scored. But I mean, it was so odd that they were. I don't know if that was part of their, oh, it's a day of mourning still. Like, we don't want to be too excited. Dude, if you don't want to be here, you didn't have to come to the game. It was just horrific. I just did not get it at all. I've seen some biased commentary, but this was more like dead commentary, where they were like, they just literally acted like they didn't want to be there. And they were like, yeah, most scores, what are you going to do? It's like, yeah, that's why sometimes I hate to say it, some of these illegal streams I use instead of the official channels turned out to be better, because I end up finding like I don't know, like an Eastern European TV station or something like that, where I don't get a word they're saying, so it's not as aggravating either freaking way. But either way, despite them, Matip, our boy, comes through, gets the winner. A lot better day. I'm thinking Reds fans today are going to watch the Champions League games, kind of like sitting more back and with a more of a smile on their faces, as opposed to, if you had like a poor result yesterday. So it turned out to be a lot better. I know I'm a lot happier. And that's how I'm going to watch the Champions League game. So it doesn't really matter what the Napoli game does. I mean, not really. I'm not going to say like if Napoli wins, like, damn it, or anything like that. I expect Napoli to win. I think they're a good side, and I don't think Rangers is that good. I mean, the only thing Rangers got for themselves is sometimes a home field advantage. But I'm telling you, when it's the Champions League, that is sometimes overrated. It might give you like a mini boost. So when you're already a really good team and you're playing against another good team, that little edge can help you go get above. But when you're so much lower than the team in terms of skill level, that little bump is not even going to get you close. And I think I expect to see that mostly from the Napoli game today. So we'll see. I saw this. See, Alan is Mr. Headlines. Thanks, Alan. With Macca not bringing headlines, God knows what he's shooting right now in the church. But yeah, I saw this kid's Christopher Atherton at 13 freaking years old is the youngest ever senior player when he comes in, and not only that, he gets an assist, which is like the first time he touches the ball. 13 freaking years old is crazy. Is freaking crazy. And I don't know, call me old school. I don't know if I like it as a dad. I don't know if I like that. Like that's too freaking young, man. That is too freaking young to be. I mean, it's great for the kids, but I'm always afraid what happens with these kids in the long run. Maybe that's the dad in me, but that is way too much pressure for a 13-year-old. If you're really good, that's fine. And maybe he was dominating so much, but I don't know, playing with, I know like my girls were doing too well for their, like, class, age class or whatever. They would be bumped up. They would bump up to, if they're like 13 years old, then maybe they would play for like U15s or U16s or U17s or something like that. So at least you get challenged physically. I mean, a 13-year-old schoolboy, and I saw the picture of the kid. He does not look like there's some like 13-year-olds, like 14-year-olds right now who look like they could be 19, 20, like physically, but this kid didn't look like that either. Like he doesn't look like a big kid where he like, like tosses people around. So I don't know. I mean, it's cool as hell for him. I was shocked to have anybody put that kid in that situation, though. I don't know. I'm a little torn on that. I would love to hear what you guys think. Because, like I say, maybe it's just a dad in me talking. Like, I would not want, as much as I would be proud, I'd be worried to have my 13-year-old in that situation, under that pressure, under that scrutiny, playing with freaking like men, for God's sakes, literally. So I mean, he's playing like guys who could be his dad. So it's kind of like an odd situation, but he must be something. So we'll sign him up. Announce, let the hashtag going, announce Atherton, and see what happens. Maybe we'll sign him up and pick him up in January. Play him as a 14-year-old. Maybe he'll be 14 by the time we come back to the Champions League second rounds. But thanks a lot, everybody, for joining, commenting. I really appreciate it. I'll be back tomorrow morning with the morning coffee. And tomorrow night, obviously, we have the crew with Mecca the Slacker, as Alan Walnut calls him, along with Jamie and probably David, kind of like covering the Ajax game. And they might have, I know definitely Jamie has slightly different takes than me because we were discussing it on Discord yesterday, but we'll love to see what those guys thought in terms of some of the things we covered this morning. But enjoy the games today. Enjoy your hump day Wednesday, and I'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Take care.